Special meeting of the Shelton Metropolitan Parks District is now called to order. We have nothing on our consent agenda, but we do have a couple of resolutions under old business, and Mark Ziegler is going to present.
Thank you, Commissioners. I believe we have a hearing open for this because we're adopting the resolutions for the ad valorem tax for the Metropolitan Park District. And I'll just give you a little briefing on that. As required by state law, the Shelton Metropolitan Park District will hold the hearing associated with the preliminary budget process back on November 7th. During the hearing, the anticipated revenues and requested expenditures for the Metropolitan Park District were provided for both the current year and the ensuing year. The 2017 ad valorem property tax levy public hearing is part of this. The district population exceeds 10,000, so the limit, the cap on that levy is a full 1% increase for ad valorem property tax. This increase is limited to the lesser of 1% or the implicit price deflator, IPD, a measure of inflation, which this year is 0.953%. However, the full 1% increase can still be levied if a substantial need resolution is passed. This resolution is also in your packet. In addition, the ad valorem resolution levy certification must be submitted and approved by the Park Board and to the county auditor by November 30th, 2016. Staff is recommending a reading and acceptance of resolution number 17-1116, the increase in the ad valorem taxes in the Metropolitan Park District for the calendar year 2017, and resolution number 18-116, declaring a substantial need for increasing ad valorem taxes for the SMPD for calendar year 2017, and placing both of these resolutions on the consent agenda for the 28th of November with the second reading.
Okay. So we have another Park District meeting on November 28th, or
we
on?
Schedule a special meeting at that point if you want to do the second reading, yes, of these resolutions.
Okay. Do we also have a December 5th meeting?
We have a December 5th meeting that is in line with the budget.
Okay.
So our approved budget, yes, but we can't approve these resolutions on the December 5th meeting, unfortunately, because they have to be in the county by November 30th. So we have we have a timeline restriction. We pulled these from the agenda last week. Otherwise, we'd be in the same calendar as the city's budget process and the ad valorem tax resolutions, but we had some cleanup to do on these last week, so we had to push them back a week. Therefore, we'll have a short meeting for a second reading next week on the 28th as well for our district meeting.
Okay. All right.
If the commission chose to, or the district chose to do so, you could have a first reading and final reading of the resolutions tonight. Resolutions only take one reading, so you could do that. It would be the pleasure of the board.
Okay. Okay. So, and please clarify for me, is there public comment on this? Is it a public meeting, public hearing?
The public hearing was held the 2nd,
Okay.
and then we just removed it to make a couple little changes that we had came to our attention that we needed to change some of the numbers that were in the resolutions.
Okay, so at this point, I will ask the other board members if you've reviewed the resolutions and if you have any comments or questions.
I have, and I have no problem doing a first and second reading on these tonight. We've talked about it in a couple of meetings, I believe, so. So I would make a motion that we pass these resolutions 17-1116. Now, do we need a reading first? Okay, another reading. Mark did a beautiful job with that. Sorry, Mark, it's nothing against you.
But we
it's just
want Corey to give us the
protocol.
official reading.
We're doing protocol.
Yeah, love that, Mark.
I
So,
guess you would request a first and second reading.
Yes. If we have a first and second reading, please, Cory.
Resolution SMPD 17-1116, a resolution of the Shelton Metropolitan Park District of Shelton, Washington, increasing the ad valorem taxes for calendar year 2017. Levy certification 2017, resolution SMPD 18-1116, a resolution of the Shelton Metropolitan Park District of Shelton, Washington, declaring a substantial need for increasing ad valorem taxes for the calendar year 2017.
Okay.
Point of clarification here, do we need to close that public hearing at this point and then vote on this?
I believe the public hearing was actually closed on November 7th,
Seventh.
so
Okay.
So we do need to vote on this.
you could vote on this.
Okay.
Yes.
I would make a motion that we pass these two resolutions after hearing first and second reading.
And I second that.
okay. No more discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Is,
For clarification, I would ask if we need a November 28th meeting, or,
At this point, no, we don't. We'll follow the city's budget schedule and have a budget approval for the SMPD at that time as well, on
Okay.
December 5th.
December 5th. So we will cancel the quarterly meeting that would normally be held November 28th.
Okay. All right, and we have no new business. Brian, do you have an administration report? All right, is there any general public comment? I'm not seeing any, so our next
meeting will,
be December 5th, 2016 at 6 p.m.
thank you.
This meeting is adjourned.
At this point, I would like to call to order the City of Shelton Commission meeting. And if you'd please stand with me and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we start our meeting tonight, we're going to change our agenda. We're going to be removing items number 1 and 2 under new business, and we will bring them back at a later date. So, the first item is commission reports and an introduction, and I would like to turn that meeting over to our management assistant, Vicki Look. Or our manager, Ryan Wheaton. Either one. Or I could do it.
Sorry for the break. We're going to let our Commissioner of Finance make this introduction. if that's
Oh,
all right.
did I, was it written here?
It's-
Oh, sorry.
We'll pass the honor along.
Okay.
We are, Nola, would you like to stand? So we know who Nola is.
Hello.
Yep. We're excited to introduce our new finance director, Nola Vaughn Newday.
Very good.
Nola comes from us from Lacey Fire District 3, where she's worked for 29 years. Over the last decade, she served as their finance director. Nola holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Business Administration and a Master of Arts degree in Organization Leadership. We're happy that Nola is joining our team. Her first day of work is scheduled for December 12th. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Excited to have you.
Thank you.
Very excited to have you.
Make sure you shake her hand.
Why not?
Thank you. All right, next is our weekly commission reports, and Commissioner Moore, did you have something?
Actually, not too much, because I think this is a busy week for everyone. I had a meeting today. I was asked to attend the county briefing with Department of Commerce and Lynn Longan, so I was there this afternoon. Tomorrow I have a meeting with Ryan, and that is it for the week.
All right, thank you. Commissioner McDowell?
I was pretty quiet. Tuesday I have my Board of Health, and Tuesday also I have a meeting with Ryan. That's my week.
All right, and Wednesday, I will be traveling to Olympia with our interim Public Works Director and our city manager to talk to the Department of Transportation about seeing if we can't get an extension on our pear orchard project. And so sometimes things don't all fall into place on the right schedule of time and money, and we are going to go and have a conversation and see if we can't get some extra time on that project. So that concludes our weekly commission reports. Next is a general public comment, and this is an opportunity to come and speak for 3 minutes about things that you're concerned about. And so, Vicki, do we have somebody signed in for that?
We do. Heidi McCutcheon has signed up for general public comment.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Heidi McCutcheon, 123 East Fairfield Court, Shelton. First, I want to commend you on taking many difficult steps over the past several weeks. We've learned much about the state of the city, and you've been asked to address many different issues. And I want you to know how much I appreciate the grace with which you have exhibited as these things have surfaced, and that you have addressed those issues head on. I know it's not a simple task. Tonight's agenda reflects even more items that need to be addressed. And I ask that you take a fiscally conservative approach as you move forward. I know it's not simple to walk away from some of these projects, and some of them have moved to a different night's agenda, but one project we've been holding on to for nearly a decade, and another has been considered for just a few short months. You're being asked to direct the city staff to define the priorities for your citizens and for your taxpayers. I ask that you consider the responsibility of what you are elected to do to represent your constituents. We have begun to see our economy weave itself together, but we're not yet fully recovered. Houses are being built, businesses are opening, people are working, but we are just now making our way onto stable ground. As such, I ask that you do not saddle this community with more debt, more projects, or more things that would make sense in a perfect world, but that will add very real cost to citizens and the taxpayers of Shelton. I believe that each of us have had to make tough decisions, not based solely on what we would like to do, but on what we must do. There have been many things that I have wanted that I simply could not afford. It is not a simple decision to make, nor is it a desirable situation to be in, but it is something that must be done. I wish you continued success as you keep striving to turn the city around. Thank you.
Thank you.
No others have
No
signed
others?
up.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right, it looks like we might be ready for a reading of the consent agenda. Are we ready for a reading of the consent agenda?
Yes.
Yes? Could we please have that?
Consent agenda. Payroll warrants number 2883 through 3028 and 12763 through 12766 and 12951 through 12973 in the amount of $637,587.91. Vouchers numbered 13025 through 13118 in the amount of $317,000, $317,303.13.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move that we approve the consent agenda as read.
I second that.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The agenda passes. Next, under our action agenda, we're going to have a report there from our acting Public Works Director, Craig Gregory.
Mayor, Commissioners, last week we brought forward a briefing on the interlocal agreement between the City of Shelton and Mason County to further treat digested sludge into Class A biosolids. And do you have any further questions for me at this point on that briefing?
I do have a question. I wonder if we have any type of income estimate as to how much this will generate?
We do not at this point. It's fairly unclear from Mason County on how much they will actually be bringing to our facility.
Okay, and then I notice here that we've been approached by 2 other communities.
We've actually been approached by a few others, even
really?
besides the ones that are listed.
And then I have kind of a basic question about this, is how is it transported?
It will be trucked in via tanker truck, and then dispersed into our digester through a 4-inch meter, and then it will be pumped up to the biosolids dryer building adjacent to the main plant.
Okay.
I guess I had a question. So, I'm very satisfied with the additional income, obviously, and that we're putting to use something that, a piece of machinery that we purchased. And, but I think that it's, that we have to think about as we progress, we need to report and see how this goes because, we've got to make sure that we can handle everything, it goes in, time. So how much we can't take the whole world, but basically income is a good thing. And so I think that as we see how this works out, we take one city at a time and see, just so that everything kind of, and we want to sell it for $100 a bag and all that.
Sure, certainly, and we will be tracking all of our costs and additional revenue, and we will certainly report back.
One city at a time? Thank you.
The only thing I have is I'd kind of like to have an income estimate eventually. Maybe you can figure that out. But
We have
bring
asked-
into the city.
We have asked Mason County for projections on
Okay.
how much they will be bringing to us. That would be the only way that we would have an idea of
Okay.
what that revenue might be.
Okay.
And they have been unclear at this point of how much they will be bringing to us.
Okay. And then I caution that I don't want this to cost more to the city than what we are making off of it.
I will guarantee you.
Upkeep on, the machines and everything that goes along with that.
We have figured everything from overhead of employees to testing, to the depreciation of not only the building, but the equipment in it.
Okay.
And finance has reviewed that, all of those financial statements
Okay.
from us.
Sounds good. All right.
Thank you very much. Now we have an opportunity, any public comment about this specific item. If anybody would like to talk about it, just have to sign in on the list over there. So if you'd like to talk about sludge, come on up and talk to us. Sludge? Sludge?
This goes off my tongue, right? The word.
Yeah. Yeah, usually, background here. Talk about crime meters. Make a motion.
Jacob Higgins would like to speak to the commission.
All right, and just state your name for the record then.
Jacob Ryan Higgins,
Okay.
formerly of 404 Laurel Street, Shelton.
Okay,
Now, I was just a little bit confused in the sense that they say they have everything figured out, including the projected cost of the depreciation of the machinery, how much it would cost to have it trucked in, and yet we don't have an income estimate. Now, what I'm wondering is it possible to defer this action until we have an estimate from whoever we would need to get it from? And that's just about it.
Okay, thank you for your comment. Anyone else? Okay, so, having heard everything, would I entertain a motion to pass this?
You want to address his question?
No, public
Okay.
comment.
Okay,
And, I mean, we can address it in our vote.
right, okay. Well, I feel comfortable, enough confidence in Craig and his group to know that there'll be some money coming into the city on this project. And that our machines and our trucks and our men and whoever's in the department, it'll be good. So I like the idea.
I want to talk to the young gentleman if I could for a second. One thing, how they generate that we're not going to lose money is, they have a price per pound. And so they have determined how much a price per pound, this is my interpretation, is going to cost the city. So it really doesn't matter if they give us 100 pounds or 1,000 pounds. The profit will be based upon what it costs them to manufacture. And usually we don't have these discussions, kind of we have public comment and then we think about it. But I believe that it's a price per pound that they have shown that they can make a profit that way. So that's why I feel comfortable doing this. And again, 1 year from now, if those numbers don't add up, if we're losing money in any way on something, we will adjust that or cancel that. So, sometimes you got to jump out a little bit. So I feel comfortable that we are doing the right thing. So that's just kind of my comments to your question on that. Okay. And so I guess I'm still entertaining a motion. Did you make it?
Tracy, have a comment?
Yes, I do. I'm ready to make a motion on this. I just would like, I'll make it as part of the motion. I recommend that the commission place the interlocal agreement with Mason County on the consent agenda for November 21st, 2016, and authorize the commission to sign the ILA when returned by the county. I also would like to make, as part of this motion, that we get quarterly updates, at least at the beginning, for the actual revenue that we will be receiving as part of this deal.
Second.
Second.
Okay, sounds good to me. There's a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next is, you are up again, my friend. Craig Gregory is going to talk to us about some snow and ice.
Last week, we brought forward a snow and ice removal plan that we have been functioning under for upwards of a couple of decades. I don't think we've ever officially formalized how we do snow removal, and at this point, we would like to move forward with formalizing so that the commission and the citizens of Shelton are clear on how we do snow removal in the event of a storm. Do you have any questions for me on this one?
Is
Any
Railroad
questions?
on that list? Railroad Avenue on that list? It wasn't in the journal.
It's on the map.
Okay.
There are 3 different zones
Okay.
within
And it's
those
in the
maps.
On the map. On that one. Okay.
Correct.
All right.
I have no questions or comments.
No, I would just say that I thought it was very clear, and I really appreciate having the maps so that when we were asked questions, we can answer those questions. And so, yeah, do we need a motion to place this on the consent agenda?
We do, but we usually let any public comment come in
Oh.
at this time. So if there's any public comment on this action item, feel free to come forward, just sign in. If anyone has anything they'd like to say, seeing no one do that, I would entertain a motion to place this on the consent agenda, I guess, if that's what we're going to do with this.
Okay, I move that the commission place the snow and ice removal plan on the consent agenda for the November 21st, 2016 commission meeting.
Is there a second?
You wanted it on the consent agenda, the 21st?
Oh, well, this says a motion.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm asking for a motion, so I'm sorry, but I guess we're not placing this on the consent agenda. It looks like we're just asking for, right? Yeah, no consent agenda.
Oh,
You're free
okay.
to vote on this.
Right.
We're free to vote on this, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so do I need to change my motion? I do. don't I?
Probably.
Okay, here we go again. I move that we approve the snow and ice removal plan presented at tonight's meeting.
And I second that.
There's a motion and a second to approve the snow and ice removal plan. Any further discussion? Let's see here. None? So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The snow and ice plan passes. Now, under old business, we are going to talk about, turn the meeting over to our manager, Ryan Wheaton. He's going to talk to us about the Simpson Railroad and Roundhouse options.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. We're back to discuss and hopefully get a resolution on, or a vote for what you'd like staff to work on with regard to the Simpson Roundhouse and Railroad. The options that are in front of you, 1 through 5, have not changed from when they were brought forward 2 weeks ago. The only thing that we have added as a staff recommendation is that the city staff would like to recommend that you move forward with option 4, which is to decline the roundhouse and move to accept the rail and convert that to a trail. This item has been taken very seriously from staff. I think that it's important to note that staff have a very strong sense of the history that the privately held railroad has for town. And not only that, but sympathy for the fact that it is one of the few remaining roundhouses in this region. With that in mind, staff at the leadership team level, director level, strongly considered 3 things when we looked at what the recommendation would be. And those 3 things were cost, risk, and return on investment. For the 5 options that are brought forward, we separated out the option 5, which was to accept nothing. For us, we've heard from you that you are interested in the railroad because it provides some benefits for opening up the entry to town and providing the railroad corridor with interesting options moving forward. With the other 4, 1 through 4, options 1 through 3 potentially have a high cost depending on who's going to be involved with that. Option 4, converting to a trail, is comparatively low compared to the others. When we looked at risk, there is risk in a number of areas for the city, regardless of who would take on the roundhouse and who would take on a project to develop some sort of rail business. The risk likely resides with the city if it takes those 2 options. And we don't take that lightly considering the current financial situation we're in. And we also look back historically at other things that the city has been given. So last week we heard from members of the Mason County Historical Society about Tolly, which was another item that was given to us with regard to the Simpson Railroad, and heard discussion that there may be some concern about how we're maintaining that. That's something that we took into consideration. We also have streets in town that were given to us from other entities. So Olympic Highway North and Alder, that is another asset that we can look at in terms of what the risk is if we aren't able to maintain that up to the standards that people in town have set. And then the last that we talked about were some of the parklands that have been donated to us that we have, but have not been able to develop to the standard of people around town. Also, we looked at the return on investment. So discussion about exploring some sort of railroad business and actually having an active train, while the prospects for the community are potentially positive. We couldn't figure out where the city of Shelton would benefit directly if something developed out at Mill 5 and that railroad were to be used. Likely possibility is that it could just pass right through town creating some traffic issues and not giving the same benefit from what we had historically when Simpson operated in both locations. So with all those things together, like I mentioned, we do respect the history that this privately held railroad and roundhouse had for this community. And I think that it's important to note that we also listened a couple weeks ago when we had a number of people come from out of town and talk to us, and people from town that came and spoke at the meeting. So those things were taken into consideration. The recommendation that staff are bringing forward tonight is that you move forward with option 4, which is to decline the roundhouse, accept the rail, and then convert that to a trail that the community can use in the future.
Thank you for your report. This is an action item, and so this is open to, I believe, some public comment. So if someone's here that wants to talk about this specific issue, now is your opportunity. So you would just come and sign in, and we'll give an opportunity to those that are here. We could probably have somebody start talking if we had the first person sign in, Vicki,
Yes.
while they're signing in.
Josh Higgins is first.
No, that's Jacob Ryan.
Jacob.
Okay?
Yes. Now, I've looked at the options, and I'm aware that some of it may appear expensive. However, we may divvy this off to a volunteer organization who would pay these costs via grants. And I simply suggest that we look at this from a standpoint which is mainly cultural. Shelton is a unique town in which it grew with the railway like many others did. However, we possess a railroad which still exists, something that's a rarity if you compare it to places like Forks and Seku, which have references to railroads and place names, but nothing physical. And therefore, I suggest that we look at this from the standpoint of remembering that it's called Railroad Avenue for a reason. I suggest that we keep in mind what we will be leaving to our children in terms of museums and learning experiences when we move forward on this. And that's just about all I have to say.
Appreciate your comments. Just state your name for the record, please.
Melanie Bacala. I am a business owner in the city of Shelton, and I'm co-chair of the Visioning Committee. And as you know, the Downtown Visioning Advisory Committee has been meeting for almost a year. The street diet has been implemented, and we're looking forward to an analysis of the feedback we've been receiving. At our October and November meetings, we were joined by KPG consultants, who you have contracted to complete the railroad corridor study. And this group has been tasked at looking at the 1.8-mile stretch between 101 and First Street and evaluating possible options for roadway and other improvements. The Visioning Advisory Committee is committed to working hand in hand with KPG to make sure we avoid duplication and end up with a clear vision for all of railroad when we're done. So this is really an exciting time for our city. And as chair of the Visioning Committee, I thank you for making a decision tonight, because it's timely in terms of our process and key to a lot of other issues. So we look forward to clear direction today from the commission so that we can hit the ground running in January and be able to make significant progress in 2017 toward both the vision and answering feasibility questions related to that vision. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Josh Higgins.
My name is Josh Coble. I've been up here before on this issue. I'm really hoping that we make the right decision here tonight. I have done some research, and like I said, the exorbitant costs that have been discussed before by the feasibility study etc. They're just, they're way out of line with the operating costs of running one of these railroads as a museum or a private enterprise, which could also handle freight traffic as well. I shared some of these, some operating costs with Ms. McDowell in an email this morning in regards to some of the other heritage operations in the area. And I've also mentioned before that if the city was to take ownership of these properties, the operation could be leased out to a private entity, be it a for-profit corporation or a non-profit corporation. That would be to say that all maintenance responsibilities, all environmental responsibilities, all access responsibilities would fall upon the private entity, with the city just becoming the owner of the assets, whereas the private entity would become steward of these assets, and we could make them beneficial for the entire Shelton community by ways of creating several jobs, and not a whole lot of jobs, but several jobs from a railroad. Cultural, an additional cultural benefit by creating a museum and an experience that would draw people into the community. It would also give people within the community something to experience and really celebrate where they've come from and where the city can go from here. This is another benefit would be museums provide volunteer opportunities, which can also endow craft skills and trade skills to people of all walks of life, which would also enable many people in the city of Shelton to get a skill that they might not otherwise have, or maybe didn't even think they could get, and would also help people transition into other jobs, which I feel would be beneficial with the recent loss of all the jobs since the closing in 03 and 05. Like I say, I just really hope that all this is taken into consideration, and I hope we make the right decision here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I think Josh said it all, but...
State your name for the record, please.
Pete Replinger. I think Josh said it all. I don't know where he came to that $28 million figure, but we had a retired federal railway inspector up in California. He looked at the line, and it passed just pretty much the way it is. It's a Class 2 railroad, which means operations up at 25 miles an hour. So I don't, this to me would be the only chance that Shelton could be a true tourist destination area. If the two of these don't pass, I don't think there's anything else happening to ever determine that. So anyway. Oh, then one member's already bought 2 coaches, another member's bought another 2 coaches, plus he said he spent $200,000 on the project, and anyway, that's all I have.
Thank you.
Mike Olson.
Mike Olson. I find myself here for the 3rd time in the 30, 40 years I've lived here, looking at the destruction of another historic property. I thought we kind of learned something over the time. You know, first we lost a gym, then we lost a church, and now we're facing losing a roundhouse. I don't know why you would be in such a hurry to make a decision on something that's not going anywhere. I haven't been privy to all the meetings and the discussions, but is there a timeline that we have to decide on the roundhouse without further study? I think that Tracy has been doing this all by herself with very little help from any other entities that could actually form a group to look at some of these things. You know, besides the county, the state, the chamber, EDC, the port. It benefits everybody in the community, and I just think that we're going to be short-sighted once again if we don't take this roundhouse and mothball it for a couple of years or a year or something to give us some more time on this. You know, there's a groundswell, a group of people that will, you know, come together and work on this. But I think if you make a decision this quick on the roundhouse, that it won't take SPI long to knock it down. And it's a valuable piece of history. I'm sure you've been aware that there's only a couple of them active on the West Coast. I think that alone would bring some people to Shelton if we were able to hold on to that for a little while longer, work with the Navy for access, SPI. I just feel it's just a shame for the community to lose another really unique asset that there aren't that many around. I find myself, again, like I said, you know, I worked hard along with Tracy to save the old gym, and once again, it was always about cost-benefit analysis. You know, you didn't take into it the heart of what it is. Same with the Catholic Church. We had a group that was going to work to buy that and restore it. And again, the decision was made on a financial basis alone. So I would just urge you to hold off on the roundhouse. The rails kind of separated out. A trail would be fine. I'm not an issue with that. But I really would urge you to not make a decision that would end up tearing that roundhouse down. I don't know why you couldn't sit on it for a year. I'm sure our risk assessment management team could you know, handle that for a year. There's already no access to it, so I don't see the high risk there with leaving it alone. And give us some time to put something together and try to save that building. Thanks.
Thank you for your comments. Is that it?
That's it.
All right. We thank you very much for your comments. And at this time, I would ask my fellow commissioners if they have any words that they would like to share.
Mayor
this time.
Krantz, I do have two letters that I would like to read into the record.
Go ahead.
All right. The first letter is submitted by Marilyn Vogler, and it's in regard to the decision on the rails and the roundhouse. There is simply too little known and too few potential stakeholders yet to be heard from to proceed with a decision at this time. That limits future possibilities. We haven't heard from SPI about access options, from the Chamber about tourism potential, from the Historic Preservation Board. We don't know what Simpson folks hoped for when they agreed to make a gift of the roundhouse to the city, or whether they would have ensured access if they knew there would be such a problem. We don't know why the city planning zoning folks allowed boundary changes that made for a landlocked property. And we don't know why there is such a push now to have it over and done with. On the other hand, I realize there is a need to keep moving forward, so I would suggest this. Accept the rail line. After all, we are in the process of spending economic revitalization grant dollars for a plan to develop the Railroad Avenue corridor. As the consultants on this grant develop their plan, work with them to determine a best use for the rails/land. One option for tracks is for a group called the Rail Riders to operate a pedal car excursion operation through the city. It seems to me this needs to be explored further, as it would bring folks to Shelton as tourists. Possibly a commercial freight line and excursion train/diner experience. Perhaps conversion to a trail. And accept the roundhouse and simply let it sit a while. Even a few years is possible, I gather, while funding and details are worked out. If nothing can be, it can be released to SPI in future for demolition or whatever. The staff recommendation for option 4, the rail to trail conversion, includes the comment that costs for option 4 are comparatively low. The immediate out-of-pocket cost may be low, but the long-term cost and the loss of a historic landmark, the loss of potential museum and major tourist draw, the loss of a significant piece of Shelton's history are huge. The next letter I have is from Sierra Pacific Industries and from their community relations manager, Lisa Perry. And it's to Ryan, Mr. Wheaton. And it says, "Thank you for the opportunity to clarify Sierra Pacific Industries' SPI position on the Roundhouse property. Below is a summary of the issues I have outlined in several conversations with city staff and officials. On the north side, we have added a fabrication shop, which, while it adds an additional 20 to 25 full-time jobs to the original estimate, also requires movement of large machinery and raw materials as well as storage needs. The west side of the parcel is adjacent to the road area that empties from the bridge across Goldsboro Creek for traffic. Once in full production, the log truck traffic will be 250 trucks, 500 trips per day, driving within 10 feet of the building. This number does not include chip, lumber, and other delivery trucks, which could easily bring the number up to 350. The east side is adjacent to an active railroad tracks owned by Puget Sound Rail. It is my understanding that the Navy has an easement into perpetuity on these tracks. The property adjacent to the south side of the Roundhouse includes a well house, the pump house, and main connections for the fire suppression system and utilities. In several meetings with the commissioners and staff, I have voiced concern that I was unable to envision a way to make the Roundhouse accessible to the public. I can definitely state that the above constraints prohibit us from donating any additional property to help provide access. We have not made a final decision on our option on the Roundhouse property itself, but it is clear from the above that we are pressed for space. We are committed to continuing to work with the city and other partners to explore ways to utilize the historic train equipment to honor this legacy, and would also like to voice our support for alternative uses of the rail corridor, including a trail project. We fully understand the history and legacy of the property and wish that it was located in a different section of the property with more flexibility. SPI is committed to being a positive addition to this community and truly hope that the addition of 200 family wage jobs in 2017 will be a step forward in the economic recovery of the region."
All right, thank you very much.
Excuse me, Vicki, would you reread just the portion about the equipment, the rail equipment? There was a sentence or two about that.
We are committed to continuing to work with the city and other partners to explore ways to utilize the historic train equipment to honor this legacy.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Commissioner Moore?
Oh, are you going to let me go first? Okay. As a background to this, many of you know that originally I asked for the Roundhouse and the rails when we found that those properties were going to be held out of the sale to Sierra Pacific. And at that time, there was an agreement from Simpson to do that, as Sierra Pacific wasn't necessarily interested in those properties anyway. At the same time is when we approached Sierra Pacific to ask for the historic rail equipment that we were just referring to. So I ran into some issues in that I had a charge from Sierra Pacific, or from Simpson, to come up with a logical plan for the use of those properties. The City Commission voted in favor of pursuing this. Let's see what we can do with this. And so time has gone by, and it's taken quite a bit of time to nail down the direction that we were asked to go on this. And we are at a spot now where we have adequate support, and we have a number of potential uses identified, as well as funders, as well as plans. Simpson has been very helpful through contracting for the Roundhouse feasibility study, which helped us out a lot. I will say that the numbers given in that study were for a final product and a top-of-the-line product, as if we had the money to actually spend millions of dollars up front, which we obviously do not. Dave McEntee of Simpson also put me in contact with Sue Dowie of the Foss Waterway Project, who has extensive experience with private public partnerships. And so she has come down and toured the site and was extremely positive about the potential. She isn't interested in coming out of retirement and working on it, but she was definitely full of ideas, excited by the potential and the unique situation that we have there, and had suggested several other uses for the Roundhouse that would include the museum, but also as a venue for special occasions. The very first time that we had a joint meeting with Sierra Pacific and folks from the state, funding agencies from the state, they came down, and to be fair, Lisa Perry did at that time express that she had concerns about the location of the Roundhouse and the limited space there. She suggested that we plan for, ultimately, when we have a museum in place, to have a pedestrian overpass, which we have been working on identifying a plan and sources of funding for that, so that the only access needed to the Roundhouse is for people who are actually working there, trucks, delivery, that type of thing. So through this process, it seems like the encroachments on the Roundhouse have become greater. Initially, we were in discussion and had planned to use the dispatch office as a part of the museum project. Well, we were told that that's the only location for the utilities, so we were given a few days to get the stuff out of the house. That was initially, we were going to move it, but then through the process of removing it, we were told that there was lead paint and then there was asbestos, and so we were just able to pull a few things out. And I'm grateful for that. We got some valuable artifacts, and the plan is to build another replica of that elsewhere so that it is not encroaching on SPI's business. So this is just kind of background. Recently, it has become clear as Sierra Pacific is expanding on the original uses that they had identified for their permitting, that the encroachment to the Roundhouse has become even greater. So rather than making our project easier, it's made it more difficult and put up more roadblocks. So while I appreciate their words that have said that they are supportive, it's difficult to find a way to work with that. But that does not mean that the Roundhouse is not still offered to the city. So we do have some options there. And we have worked to, like I said, in the way of identifying potential other easement or access through overhead passage. We have identified ways we can do that. Now, I attended in October an Infrastructure Assistance Coordinating Council conference in Wenatchee. And this is an awesome opportunity for us. I go for other reasons because it involves all infrastructure and potential funding and the latest trends in infrastructure. But at the most recent meeting, I had an opportunity to give a presentation regarding this potential project and trying to get the feel of, is this a project that the state and federal funders would find a viable project, or would they say, no, you're not going to get funding for that? Well, after meeting with representatives from at least 15 projects. They were very supportive, very, very supportive, especially given the different potential uses that we could have in the Roundhouse, such as a working museum, training programs for students wanting to learn more about the rail business, partnership with Olympic College and with the high school for students wanting to learn the hands-on type training. So there is a lot of interest. There is potential funding available. It would take about a year, and the city would have to have ownership of the property. You can't get money to develop someone else's property. So there's that. So that's all very, very doable. And as a matter of fact, today I ran into someone from Department of Commerce, and they had been talking about the project in their office, and she had been asked if she had any money at this point to give, and she didn't, not until next year. But she said that that is a project that they're discussing. So as part of the Roundhouse, I think we need to be clear that we do have at least one operator, and basically, as I'm hearing, two operators that are willing to come in, take over the Roundhouse and the rails, who have experience running trains, running freight, running excursion trains, and they are not scared off by this. They believe that this could be a very valuable asset, not only to the city of Shelton, Mason County, but to Washington State, because we have so many other tourism rail museums that are viable and running. So this could be a nexus for tourism throughout the United States to come to Washington State and visit this rail nexus. So there are many possibilities for that. I have some questions about, I'll go to that later. I also want to point out, too, that we do have a company that is very eager to come here right now, the Oregon Rail Riders, that have come, have visited, have taken their, they're not quite bikes, they're like lightweight aluminum cars that are pedal cars that run on the rails. They run one out of Joseph, Oregon, and one out of Tillamook, Oregon. The numbers are they attract 80 people per day who come into their city from outside to do this rail excursion in Joseph, and in Tillamook it's 100 to 120 per day. They carry their own liability insurance. They maintain the tracks for their use. Granted, their cars are lighter weight than a rail car would be, but they do maintain that, and they provide flaggers for intersections. So they're very safety conscious. They do have the full amount of liability that they're required to have to run on federal rails. So we have these options. They're very interested in coming. And I look at that, they want a 5-year contract. That would at least give us 5 years to attract and to identify a feasible operator for our rails so that we would not lose that valuable resource. The Rails to Trails program is great, that's fun. Everybody likes trails. I like trails. Everybody who knows I've worked toward urban trails for the whole time I've been on the commission and been very supportive of that. But I think we also, because of our economic climate, have to look at what is the highest and best value. And the highest and best value is if we can have a commercial line servicing both excursion rail and freight rail when that is needed again. And it makes no sense to pull that out and lose that potential forever if we do that for a short-term fix for a current problem, which is that we are financially strapped right now. This doesn't require capital from the city. The operators would be responsible for the maintenance and for the liability insurance for both the roundhouse and for the rails when we are able to get a contract with an operator. So the gamble to the city is not that great. I have been in conversation with Simpson quite a bit, and I was actually encouraged to for our commission to accept the roundhouse with no plans of investing money in it in the near future. Their roundhouse could sit there for several years as we work out funding. I don't think it would be several years because I think there's enough interest right now from people coming in wanting to run a business through there. So we could accept that building and then just let it sit. They have assured me there's nothing that is going to happen in the near future that cannot be maintained later. Granted, the maintenance costs will be greater once we start renovating the building, but it's not going to fall in. And if this does not work, if we were to take the roundhouse and the rails, and for some reason it doesn't work, Sierra Pacific is still going to want that property. They have the first right of refusal right now. So I have been assured by Simpson that if we did this effort without investment from the city initially, that would buy us time. We have the granting agencies who have promised money and help, and this is part of the discussion in the state. And then we are not losing an asset that we can never regain. And I would just like to say also that Mike brought it up, not 1 week ever goes by that I don't have an impassioned cry from someone in our community that the gymnasium was torn down. That was a building that was usable, that had lots of use left in it. It was just a quick and easy, not really because it was a big fight, but it was a quick monetary gain for the school district rather than applying or allowing the grants that could have restructured and reused that building, that it was torn down and wasted. And now on that site, we have portables and broken dreams. And we could have an historic building there with lots of years left and lots of value. And I'm probably forgetting to say lots of things. I'm very passionate about this. I would like to say also, though, Ryan, in that our packet, that there is one figure. The figures all seem a little high to me too, but what is it, 4? Oh, it's a 4. Under option 3, the figure is given potential for $5.3 million in rail upgrades within the city limits, and that I was given the numbers from the last unofficial inspection of the tracks, which was 2 years ago, that for the track improvements from inside the city to Mill 5 was $350,000 to $400,000 for all the improvements that were needed, and that included the rail a half mile of rail both sides, as well as over 1,000 ties. And so this number, it doesn't make sense at all.
So I would be the first to admit that neither I nor anybody else at the City of Shelton is at all qualified to make railroad projections, because we do not have anybody on staff that's ever worked for a railroad. This, as mentioned here, we don't know what that option would look like. There are a variety of things that have been discussed, but we provided what was given to us by Simpson as the potential highest cost, and that was $500 a foot for upgraded to common carrier status. So it could be a range. At this point, if it were $300,000, I think that the recommendation for staff would be the same.
I think that we've learned over the last few months to really, really check the numbers when we're making decisions. And so I just wanted to point out that I don't believe that number is correct. And I think that the difference between 300 or 450,000 and 5.3 million is a large enough difference that we should narrow that down and really look at that if we're being given those numbers to make a decision based on.
We would if we had some direction, but we don't know what that option would be. And so in absence of giving some false information, we have provided what we noted would be the potential for that. But like I said, without knowing what the plan would be, it was very difficult for us to cost that out.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That's all I have for right now.
All right, thank you very much, Commissioner Moore. Well, I will speak about this subject. And I would love to keep the roundhouse, but I will recommend that we do not. And I'll tell you why. Maybe if we didn't owe the amount of money we owe, maybe I saw a report today that the city of Shelton in 2007 had projected a population of 1,700 or 17,000 people, and we have 10,000 people. So maybe if we had actually had that growth, something like this would be probably easier. Maybe had we not lost a couple of mills and now are getting one mill with about 1/2 the amount of employees back, and maybe if we weren't about in the process of giving back grant money on projects we can't fix and finish, maybe if Shelton Hills was up and operating right now, maybe if we had some money. I have been consistent, probably the most consistent person I know, about the fact that for 10 years I've been saying we have to get our fiscal house in order. We cannot take risks on any financial decisions based on what we're thinking a nice idea would be like in the future. We have to base it upon our history, on what has happened in the past. And we unfortunately are in a situation to where we are, and we will, dig ourselves out of a huge debt. And so that's my main reason. It's not just that we couldn't get access to it or that this would happen, but we have liability issues and just a lot of issues. And so I will follow the recommendations of our staff to take the rail to trail conversion, but to say no on the roundhouse. And I can honestly say that only one person outside of a few people in this passionate core group, only one person has mentioned to me in the past year about the roundhouse. Only one person talked about it, and they said that they didn't think that we should do it. And so we will not make everybody happy. If we went that way, we wouldn't make people happy. If we went this way, we wouldn't make people happy. But we as commissioners have to represent, I have to represent all the people that are sitting in their homes tonight. And what is the most important thing to them? The most important thing is that we do not continue to raise their water and sewer and garbage bills. The most important thing is that they have a nice, safe, secure city and to live in, and provides them opportunities for employment, and that we get Sahara Pacific up and running real quick. The most important thing for them is that they have a city that takes care of their basic needs. And so I just cannot support that, and I have no problem in saying that it's just we're not in a position to be able to do this. If we were Redmond or Woodinville or someplace, that had their fiscal house in order, and we had some other issues that might have made it easier, but representing this city, I would have to say that it is even a stretch for me to look at, if we did the option 4, which I would be happy to sign on to, we still got to come up with $300,000. And in my opinion, that has to be 100% volunteer. And I don't, that's stretching my limits. So the possibility of 28 million or 10 million or 5 million or whatever, I just don't, I think it would not be prudent for us to jump out into this world. We have to base our decisions on reality, and unfortunately, we have jumped way farther than what we ever should have jumped with this city, and that's why I ran for mayor. And so I would be consistent in my beliefs that we need to look at everything we buy, and if it's going to make us money, we get it. If it's not going to make us money, guaranteed, 100% with no liability. And so I just cannot go along with it at this time. So that's my speech.
But the prices weren't reality. You had testimony.
No, we don't speak from there, sir. Thank you. Commissioner McDowell? Yeah?
Okay, so this is where I'm coming from. I grew up in Shelton, and I remember the Roundhouse, going there at school field trips and watching the trains go in and turning around, and it was so exciting, and explaining how it worked, and it was just a really cool thing. It really was. It's part of Shelton's history. If this was not an inconvenience to Sierra Pacific, I would really like to see it, hold on to it for a year or two to see it. Absolutely, there isn't anything we can do to keep it. If Sierra Pacific said that's fine, you can hang on to it and exhaust all the possibilities. When all possibilities are exhausted, then it comes back to decide whether it gets torn down or not. I got a suggestion from two very smart ladies. I won't name who they are, but they suggested if the Roundhouse gets torn down, let's save the turntable, place it someplace in the city that people can come and visit it, learn about the turntable itself. So I'm in the middle of the road whether I really want to keep the Roundhouse or I want to get rid of it. It's not going to send any money to Shelton's economy. It's going to cost a lot of money, whoever takes this over, and Shelton's economy is not going to boom because we have a Roundhouse. The rails, there is an entity that is going to be hard to deal with as far as keeping the rails. I can't name that entity right now, but it's going to be a bugaboo with them to get the rails in order for a train or whatever to run. It's a big, huge expense to redo those rails and have whatever, a train or those little rail car things that you go on. There's going to be some governmental issues with that, keeping the railroad tracks. So what I am suggesting tonight, I would like to see us hold on to the Roundhouse a little bit longer, see if anything can come of it. I do suggest that to come up with $300,000 to dismantle the rails, that's a lot of money. So I think we ought to sit on that for a while, see what happens there. And the government entities that's involved in the rail can come forward and just really lay it out that this is going to be the issue that we're dealing with. But at this point, I have a gut feeling just to hang on to the Roundhouse a little bit longer.
All right.
I've talked to a lot of people, and Gary said, absolutely, I don't think that I have had anybody in the city limits or in Mason County come begging to keep the Roundhouse. So the plea there the plea is not here to keep the Roundhouse. But I am at this point not ready quite to get rid of it until SPI or another government entity or the Navy says we can't cross the tracks at any expense, whatever, then I'll concede to that. But my gut feeling says hang on to the Roundhouse a little bit longer.
All right, so just 1 second. We've heard that we have an interest in hanging on to the roundhouse for a little bit longer, okay? So what we have on there, is there an option then? We don't have that as an option. So would we have a friendly amendment or recommendation from staff on how we could proceed then at this time on it?
What we're really looking for is some direction. So we are spending anywhere between 5 and 10 hours a week working on this now. I know it seems pretty minimal. So what we're hoping is that we can get some direction as to what you would like staff to do. And that could be that it looks different than one of these options.
I will be the first to say that majority rules on this commission, and I will back whatever any two commissioners say and do, as I have in the past. And but we have to figure out, okay, what we're going to present to you for direction at this time. So I think, are we open for, is option 4 on, whether we do, option 4 is a definite, whether we keep the roundhouse or not. Is that a true statement? I mean, do we want to?
You're at liberty to change and come up with your own motion if you guys want it.
Okay.
So we had we had all three of us supporting a rail to trail conversion.
No.
We didn't?
No, I don't want, at this point, I don't want the tracks
Oh.
pulled up immediately until we find out
Right.
what it would cost to maintain the tracks, what we could put on the tracks, you know.
Okay,
Stuff
so
like that.
then we kind of got a mixed bag here on this.
Because once we pull those tracks up, it's just like the
Well,
chocolate gym.
just
there's no going
point
back.
of color, I don't think we accept the track. I don't think we pull them up right away.
Right.
Right, I think we just accept it.
Accept
But
the
at this
track.
point, we're kind of back to the drawing board. It appears we accept nothing at the moment, other than we are prolonging the discussion on keeping the roundhouse.
I don't know. I think actually Simpson is asking for a decision. I think if we accepted the roundhouse and accepted the rails at this point, we could decide what to do with them later. That would give us more opportunity to, and more potential for receiving funding if we owned the actual roundhouse and the rails. I believe that if we decided to bag it after a couple years, if it wasn't working out, that Sierra Pacific would probably happily take the roundhouse property from us for $1, whatever. That property could convert back over to them. But in the meantime, we could work in good faith, continue to work in good faith with the different entities.
One thing I am asking here is that we do not take any more staff time on this project.
I think there will be staff time that will be involved in doing that. There will have to be to do the land transfers and all that, but I wish that Kathy and I could work together in a committee. It doesn't work. I would be willing to continue to work with the contacts, and maybe I could hand some of those off to you so that we can work together on that.
I just feel like if we make a decision tonight on this, we may be sorry down the road. And it's just still not enough answers in the back of my brain to say a definite get rid of it. And that's where I'm coming from. I just don't feel comfortable in it.
Okay? What I would like to do is, at this point, I think staff needs to have an opportunity to give some other options on exactly where we are and what we're doing, because we can speak to our manager about what we're feeling, and I think we need to we're not going to make a decision tonight. I think we need to table this and see if we can come up with, because we have a lot of ideas now, and one thing we have, as a commission, decided that we're putting this thing on hold right now.
I don't know if we need to do that.
Well, what are we
We
gonna
could put it on hold forever and still be faced with this unknown, in that if we don't own the property and we haven't making that commitment.
Staff is looking for direction, so, I mean, we have to give them direction, and I will support whatever two people want to do, but we have a conflict, we need some time to get your ideas together on what you're going to do, so I think that you have questions, she has questions, you're talking about no staff time, well, that's a big question,
Yeah.
so.
If the direction is for us to look at other options, we can bring those forward in the next week or two.
I'm ready to make a motion right now.
What would the motion be?
You're not quite,
What would your motion be?
my motion would be that we continue working with Simpson to take the properties, that we then have the Roundhouse so that we can explore the funding opportunities that are currently being offered, and also to explore the operators who are interested in coming in and operating the Roundhouse and the rails.
One thing I will say is that if it comes to where it's in such an inconvenient spot right now, the
Mhm.
Roundhouse. I mean, if it was anywhere else, probably would be fine, but I don't want it to be a huge inconvenience with SPI and their operations. And that's what I'm concerned about also.
Well, they've already stated that it is inconvenient, but I think that they're working under the assumption that it may not be there, that the Roundhouse may not be there. So I'm not sure that all the options are being explored for what they can do to work their operations around it.
With the fighting, I'm thinking about the swimming pool issue, in Shelton. If we had just said, okay, let's go with the school board and say, we can't do anything, we just can't do anything. It would have been drained and filled with cement and something would have happened. We would not have happened, and the community came together on that. Now, we don't have the same people coming together on the Roundhouse issue. I wish we did. More passion in this project. But I just deep down, just nagging, I would probably kick myself if I voted to scrap the Roundhouse and see what happens.
So I'm not clear on your motion, Commissioner Moore, because it doesn't sound like we are totally on the same, even you two are totally on the same track at the moment to make a motion. I would table this for a week or two, put it under old business. We got to think about this.
Yeah.
Well, I haven't made the motion yet.
Oh.
Kathy's just not certain she's ready to make a decision.
Yeah, I'm not.
So my motion is,
Not what we're talking about right now.
I think we should table this for another couple weeks.
We are comfortable doing that if we need to bring back some other options.
Okay, that and how much staff time, but without direction, you don't know what staff time will need to be put into this.
It's hard to say, but either way, whether you vote on something now or put it off, there will be staff time.
Okay.
There you go. And I will respect the wishes of this commission.
Okay, and so as far as direction that I would like to see the staff take, I would like to see some of the questions answered as far as what happens with the land transfer, if Sierra Pacific would be willing to still take a first right of refusal if we should decide not to do this, and also if they will work with us on getting access and getting, if not that, then if they have another idea as to where we could put the materials that they have so graciously given us for a museum, if they have other property that they would be willing to use, or if they would be willing to make a financial donation for a rail museum if we end up having to move the museum.
So, at this point, are we comfortable with moving this to old business 2 weeks from today? Is that, and it gives time?
I have one more comment to make.
Sure.
The rail, it's going to be a big expense to keep the upkeep on the rail from Shelton to the 5.
I can kind of answer that, is that the rail inside the city has been really well maintained. The majority of the issues that need to be looked at are from the city limits to Mill 5, and Green Diamond will have those rails. So,
Green Diamond, as I understand, well, anyway. Green Diamond, as I understand, they don't want to put the money into keeping those rails.
so what
The
we
upkeep on them.
So what we would have to look at that point, gosh, Patty, we're all looking at you. We would have to look at the fact, would Green Diamond be willing to sell those rails? Would they?
I don't know, that's something that we would
Yeah.
have to talk about, but.
It's definitely a
I know that
consideration.
the rails are not going to want to be maintained by Green Diamond,
Mhm.
which is understandable.
Mhm. It is.
Yeah, and I totally
Mhm.
understand. But another option would be, if we can't keep the roundhouse, let's keep some big parts of it and place them in places up railroad somewhere that people can come in and learn about, the turntable and some other things, so.
I would entertain a motion to put this under old business 2 weeks from today.
I second that, do I second that?
You can if you want. I can't make the motion, I entertain the motion, so
I
you'd
see,
have to make
okay.
the motion.
So I'm going to make a motion that we come back to this, table this to 2 weeks from today, and have some more information and possibility of decisions at that point of what to do.
Okay, there's a motion, is there a second to the motion?
Yes, I'll second that motion.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of tabling this issue, bringing it back under old business?
Okay,
in 2
sorry, and I
weeks?
guess I do have some discussion on that. So I'm assuming that in this 2 weeks that we should confer with operators and potential funders and get more facts that we can get as this is moving forward. Okay?
Okay.
I would caution to be a little careful with talking directly with people that might be involved with any potential project, as we may have to go out for an RFP. I wouldn't want
Okay.
to disqualify anybody that might get unfair advantage with being involved with the planning process before we
Okay.
actually get to it.
Yeah, I would highly recommend listening to the manager of our city and also know that there are legal ramifications any and every way you can imagine on things like this. So if you have a little white paper on how we talk to people like this, now is a cautionary time period. So we had a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. All right, next, a bit of information. Craig Gregory, come forward. He's going to talk to us about sludge again. Right?
What's that?
You're talking about sludge again, right?
We are talking about sludge again.
All right.
Last week, we brought forward a addition to the fee schedule on page 12 of the fee schedule, highlighted in bold and red font, is the only change to the fee schedule.
If that was it, no, I mean, if that was the only bold print that I needed, you could have just said it at the meeting. The only change was that thing right there. I thought there was probably some other things in there. Was that the only change?
Yes, sir.
Well, sorry for making you go back to the drawing board. Okay, well.
It's fine. It's directly related to the ILA and the intake of digested sludge. And Mayor, you were correct earlier with your assessment of how we were calculating that.
Thank you. Sometimes I'm right.
You were right on this one.
All right.
So the only change was that 67 cents per dried pound of processed sludge.
Okay, seeing as how we've done this once before, I guess at this point, if there's anybody from the public like to speak about sludge, now is your opportunity. You can write it down in your book or whatever, but I don't know that I see anybody jumping on this subject. So, at this point, any commissioners have anything they'd like to speak about, opinions?
Oh, no.
Okay, so I guess I would entertain a motion at this time. I ask, is there a motion in place?
Tell me where.
Well, we're on page 4, so I don't know.
Okay, this
We're
is
at the bottom
about
second
the-
under old business.
This is about updating the fee schedule.
Right.
Right, okay. I move that the commission place resolution number 1095-1116, updating the city fee schedule on the action agenda for November 28th, 2016.
I second that.
There's a motion and a second to adopt this fee schedule, and any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Another sludge passes.
I always like it when they throw in effluent, too.
Effluent? No, this is just about sludge. There was no effluent in this one. Okay, so at this point, it looks like Mark Ziegler is going to come up and talk to us about the rotating art gallery arts recommendation.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. It's once again time to present the commission with recommendations for the Shelton Civic Center Rotating Art Gallery. The Arts Commission called for artists with a deadline for artist submittals on November 11th, 2016. Received a number of entries. It says 2 because one was a group from Olympic College artists, so I'll explain that a little bit more. The Arts Commission met on November 16th to jury the work. I believe you have color photos in front of you, is that right?
Do we all have the same photos?
I'm not sure if there was more than one copy made, but.
Okay.
So you can review those as we go through. So tonight, the Arts Commission is presenting to you the recommended artists of Kimberly Wheeler, Pat Denny, Robin Patterson, Michael Eggers, and Paul Kucharek. With your approval to place these on the consent agenda for November 28th, the Arts Commission will have
Is that Pat?
installation. That is one of Pat Denny's.
Metal art
multimedia.
for metal.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So as I mentioned, there's 3 artists that applied under a group, kind of a group artist from Olympic College Shelton through their welding program. And they're artists that went through the welding program. So you see some of the metal art in there that they produced. And that's Kimberly Wheeler, Robin Patterson, and Pat Denny all have pieces that are products of that program up here at Olympic College that will fit quite nicely here in the Civic Center.
Yeah.
So again, with your approval on November 28th, the Arts Commission would have the work up by December 1st. And that work would be up to the end of February when we, again, would bring back more recommendations for placement in the rotating art gallery in the Civic Center.
I concur. Nope, just have to concur. I concur.
Very good.
Yeah.
Thank you
Okay,
so much.
concur.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Administration reports.
One thing, we had discussed a couple weeks ago that we were waiting for the Transportation Improvement Board to announce the grantee awards for next year. The city of Shelton was not awarded the grant to work on the overpass at Wallace Nealon and Highway 101. That was connected to the Shelton Hills project, and we were not awarded that, and we were informed of that yesterday, or excuse me, today.
So can we apply as soon as we have another project of that scale that would qualify under the TIP? Can we apply, or do we have to wait a set number of years before we can apply again?
I don't know the exact answer.
I believe we can apply next year.
Okay.
All right, is there any other administration final touches? Hearing none, our next meeting will be November 28th at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. This meeting is adjourned.